Hey there, guys. Carl coming at you from a little bit of a different location as normal. You can tell the backdrop's not there. And this is going to be a little less edited, scripted, whatever you want to say. This is a little bit more of an open forum. And I want to hopefully do this maybe once a week because the whole thing is that I could talk to you guys in the comments, and that's great. But the problem is that I'm limited to the characters that I can type out. And often when I'm responding to you guys, it's on my phone. So you're sitting there kind of clicking away like this, not necessarily at a keyboard where I can type a little faster. And often there's something that I would like to go into more detail with, and I just don't have the opportunity, especially through text. The other problem is when I respond to one of your comments, I don't get a YouTube notification that you replied back. The only way I can do that is by scrolling back in the comments and seeing if there's more than two, and then I can check it and respond. But I apologize if there's some of you who want to have a little bit of a back and forth and I haven't responded. It's really difficult, especially when comments keep coming in, which is a great thing, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes it's hard to have a conversation. So that's what I'm sort of hoping to do with this is answer some questions more in depth, the ones that are thoughtful and really require a more thought out response. So the question this week is why would you buy a pair of $1,000 boots? So let's say, John Lofgren, MYG Handmade, Roll Club, Hobu Leatherport, any number of very, very high-end leather boot makers. Why would you buy one of their boots compared to a pair of Red Wings or Wolverines or something like that? Where's the benefit? And it's a great question because I really had to think about it for a second. It wasn't like, well, obviously this or that. Now, I mean, yeah, you could argue the quality's better, but there's a point of diminishing return, and that's the sweet spot that I'm really interested in, where you pay a certain amount. So let's say that anything under $100 is really pretty crappy. We've gone into that with the Brahma boots that I cut in half, and you could kind of see where you're not getting a lot of quality there. You start getting around $200, and things begin to even off a little bit. So you're having things like nice leather, possibly some cork on the insole there, maybe a leather insole, maybe not. And you start to get a little bit more refined pieces of material that go into your boot. When you start getting a little bit higher into like the $350 range, you get a pair of Red Wings like these right here. I mean, ubiquitous Iron Ranger. You see these things everywhere, and for good reason. When you start getting into a boot like that, it starts becoming a little blurry. So then you start saying, well, if I'm going to spend $350 on these, well, what about the jump to a White's Westco, something like that, Nick's boots? What's the real benefit there? And I've showed you before that there is a big difference in the construction, the amount of leather that they're using there rather than synthetic materials. And so you actually have a better overall quality boot. But even at $500, I think it's just over $500 for the Nix Builder Pro, which is a very serious work boot, one that most people would say, all right, that's the limit for me. Why is it worth twice as much to buy an MYG Handmade or something of that equivalent? And I think what it really boils down to is your perspective. So if you're looking at it from a working man's perspective, and that being you need something just to protect your feet while you're at work, then it does not make sense to go and buy a pair of those. If you're looking for something to do the job, well, a Hyundai Sonata will get you to and from work without a problem for a long time. I mean, they go for, 200,000 miles. Most cars these days go for 200,000 miles. If that's what you're looking for, then that's fine. When you find yourself really getting into cars, though, you find yourself looking at like the ultimate version of whatever it is that you're into. So, I mean, I'm into muscle cars. I like that era. So, of course, I'm looking at, man, someday imagine having like a Hemi Cuda. When you're looking at a boot like the MYG Handmade nail shank boots that I just got, the reason that I wanted those boots wasn't because they're the best at protecting your feet or because they use the super exotic leather or something like that. The reason that I wanted them was the artistry that went into making them. So it's one guy who, has perfected his craft and he does what he does. It's a world-class maker, so arguably he's one of the best out there. Brian the Bootmaker from Roll Club is another one. There's a lot of them in Japan, as a matter of fact, a lot of very, very good makers in Japan. So all of these people have their own little twist that they put on things. So at that point, it's almost like buying art. You're buying it because of the way that that person makes it. So the reason I wanted the MYG Handmade is because they had this aggressive, intimidating look to them, which I thought was really appealing. They look really, really neat and interesting and different than anything I've seen before. And they're completely bench made. completely made by hand, stitched by hand. He even cuts all the leather by hand, and the channel that they sink the welt to, everything about it is done by hand to your measurements. So, if I'm looking for a boot to go out and work in the yard with, they're not going to be those. Now, you could if you wanted to. I mean, they'll hold up to it. But the whole point is that the reason I wanted those is because of the artistry involved. And for that, you pay a premium. If there was one guy sitting around at Red Wing who's putting together Iron Rangers, then it would be the same thing, because you're paying that guy a fair wage, and you're also paying for him for his knowledge and his ability to make you something really, really great. So in that regard, it's a much different process. And a lot of people will say to me, hey, you're throwing your money away by buying a boot that costs, $1,200. The reason it's worth it, it's only worth it if it's something that you're into. That's the only time that I would suggest ever buying something of that caliber. So any questions that you have which you'd like me to address in a future video, please let me know, and I'll do my best to make a video on them in the future. If you like this segment, let me know. If you don't like it, let me know, please. I enjoy talking to you guys in the comments always. So thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.